Okay, Matt of Universals, I have a question for you.
Oh no.
What funny
It's
thing...
this part.
Yeah, it's this part. You gotta eat your vegetables before you can have your dessert. What funny thing happened when there was a Doomsday clock?
The doctor stole something from it.
No. People were making jokes
Wow.
like there was no tomorrow.
It's like I like that punchline, but I'm not laughing.
It's meant to be cringe.
I know it's meant to be cringe, but like at the same time, I'm just like, that's actually kind of clever. But it's
Oh,
not
it's
that
so
funny.
clever. It's so clever.
It's yeah, it's like yeah.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to the next in the Worst of Classic Who series. Today we're going to be doing the 5th Doctor story for the Doomsday, which me and Matt have never seen before, so it's going to be a completely new experience.
Yes. Connor, have you seen Snake Dance before?
I have seen Snake Dance.
So this is the last story on both our lists chronologically that neither of us have seen.
Oh. Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've seen everything after Snake Dance then?
Yes.
Very interesting.
And I've seen everything before it, bar this.
Right, so you're gonna have seen all of Classic Who before me then?
Yes.
Ah, Jamie. Well, anyway, so this is written by Terence Dudley. We'll get to that, but it's also the only things I really know about the story is I know that Eirich is a sexist in it, and I know that James Goss thinks it's a great story, and that's pretty much it. And I know that it's the first one that Peter Davison filmed as well, and I know he's quite squeaky.
Yes. I know the villain. Well, I know what the villain looks like. And I know of one particular scene that will make anyone who knows anything about space squirm.
Ah.
But that's it.
I know that
Other than that, I know
that Peter Davison throws a cricket ball in space?
Yes, he does. That's the scene I'm on about.
Okay.
But I don't think that's the issue.
Right. Okay.
Of that scene. But that scene does cause an issue.
I see. Well,
but that's it. That's all I know.
With that said, spoiler warning for anyone, because sometimes in these videos I like to talk about stories I have seen. I've seen all of New Who and I've seen most of Classic Who, so just bear that in mind. Also, leave a comment for episodes to defend against Hellbent at the end. We do always do that. And give a paragraph as to why, as that kind of helps us, respond to you directly.
I don't actually know which episode we're going to be covering.
Oh, it's one that I know you like.
I'll find it. If it's...
You'll find out. You'll find out.
I have a feeling I know what it is, but I could be very wrong.
You'll find out.
Yeah.
Also, we have this list on screen. These are the stories that we've done so far. We're now into the right side on the 80s. Once we've done...
the 80s.
Yes, we're in the 80s. The 80s takes up the entire of one side of the screen because there's so many of them that were on the list.
The worst decade of Classic Who. Because it's the most inconsistent.
I'd say so.
It's like my two favourite seasons are in it, but also like some of my least favourite are as well. And it's like, even the 70s, like the Graham Williams era didn't sink that low overall. It's just, there's some shite in there.
There's only one. Anyway.
I have a feeling I know which one you don't like from Graham Williams.
Everyone knows.
Actually, no, I know which one you don't like, and now I thought of the fact that you like the one that I was thinking about before. No. Connor.
Look, let's not talk about this today.
We'll talk about this after. We'll have words.
Anyway, so there's the list on screen. Once all that's done, we unlock the finale, which is Dimensions in Time. That'll be fun.
Indeed.
Anything else you want to say before we crack right into For the Doomsday?
All I'm gonna say is, I'm gonna call out Will for being a lovely person. He's lovely, I want to hug him. But now I'm also going to call out you, Connor, for liking season 18, which is terrible. You didn't expect that, did you?
Well, I'm hoping that after we do this video, you'll finally shut the fuck up about season 18, because you said you would.
Hopefully. I don't think I'll ever, like, shut up about it, but I don't think I'm going to be commenting on it as frequently.
Yeah, I know, because
Because season 18 is, like, the most fresh, but even now I've watched Castrovalva, which is a fucking breath of fresh air. Like, yeah. I'm probably not... I'm not in the mood to trash season 18. I'm in the mood to discuss season 19. Because
you've escaped season 18 and now...
I've escaped that. Because, yeah, Castrovalva, even though it was written by the guy that made season 18 boring, I do think Bibmead is a good writer, and really he needs a good script editor to...
I think season 18 is miles better than season 19, but that's just me.
Yeah, I think season 19 is miles better than season 18, but it's not that good. Anyway. Although I do think a lot of the scripts are probably really good.
I suppose the only way to find out, because this story, watching it might alter up and down where season 19 ranks for you, depending on whether it's good or bad.
I've made predictions like using my spreadsheet, and I'm like, oh, no matter how good most of season 19 will be, even if I do end up somewhat enjoying this a little, I'm still probably going to rank it okay, no matter how much.
So even if Fort of Doomsday was a 10 out of 10, it would still be an okay.
Maybe
season.
If it was a 10 out of 10, I'd be like, yeah, the season's good. But because Time Flight would cancel it out.
I see. Well, I haven't seen Time Flight yet, but that's on the list.
Maybe I'll be less harsh on it, but even then, if I gave both this and Time Flight 4 out of 10s. The season would be high in okay tier, but still an okay tier. Maybe Series 6 would probably be better. and we all know how much I like Series 6. I don't like it. Let's just get on with it. We'll be here all day.
I don't want to talk about Series 6. And I don't want to talk about Season 18. For the opposite reason.
Right.
This is too much discourse for a Fort of Doomsday video.
Yeah. Four to discourse.
Doesn't look much like Heathrow to me.
Last time I was there, they were doing strange things to Terminal 3.
Okay, that's... Okay, I like that.
Useless, Doctor.
Okay.
None of you is to leave here. Is that clearly understood?
They're all going to leave there, aren't they? Oh no.
God, he's such a
no.
Peter Davison's Doctor is such a granddad sometimes. I want all your children, all you children, to stay where you are. It's very dangerous.
I want all your children.
Sorry. Fuck.
I mean, I was about to say he's got the sort of old man in a young man's body vibes. Maybe he's also got other vibes from 11.
No.
So why is he wearing a fucking Ant-Man helmet?
Didn't he explain it was like something to do with the radiation? I could be wrong on that.
Maybe.
Maybe it's just in case something falls on his head.
And now the tit is following him.
I'm a bit out of practice with tits.
You could always read. Read? Yes, there's a fascinating book on maths through there by a chap called Bert Russell.
Maths?
That's the trouble with women. Mindless, impatient.
Oh no. Oh no, that's very not poggers. As Will Maddox
Well, yes, but you're not a
said that I would say.
No, you're only a girl.
Oh my goodness!
Just
You little shit! At least
I knew.
Hey! At least they fought back.
Yeah. Like, Terrence Dudley wrote Eirich to be a sexist. Okay. I got vibes from him.
To be fair, it is in character.
How's it in character for him to be sexist?
Eirich, because he's
in character for him to be a little shit.
What's that?
Well, I suppose it would be best described as a sort of mobile black eye with a hypnotic stare. Whoever or whatever is running...
The Fifth Doctor is such a nerd.
That's why he likes Nissa. That's why Davison likes Nissa,
Yeah.
because it's just like, she's just a mini doctor.
I know, but like he just doesn't. I don't think he realizes like how uncool he is.
A door!
Oh, well, that's a friendly jest.
A door! I would have never have guessed that. I am so amazed. I did not know that they had doors in space. Like, you do not realize how much of a revelation it is that Tegan pointed out that that was a door.
Adric's annoyed because he has to stay with a woman. Peter Davison likes tits in the air.
Well, at least the doctor took one of the women with him, so Eirich didn't have to suffer twice.
Oh God. Jesus.
He doesn't like the tit. I mean, Matthew Waterhouse is gay. Do you think Adric would like the man tit?
How can Earthlings have penetrated us?
How can Earthlings have penetrated us?
Oh. Oh, here we go. Hello there.
Isn't that what the best-dressed Earthling women are wearing these days?
These days?
It's kind of hard, difficult to explain.
You've got a piece of paper?
Okay.
This is interesting. Like, what? Why are they so interested in her fashion?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is Fort of Doomsday like a runway? Oh, Edric, I thought you didn't care about women.
No, he doesn't like them, but he cares about them because he'll get in trouble if he's lost them.
Oh. Yes, because the squeaky man will come in and say, "That was very irresponsible."
Irresponsible.
Sorry, irresponsible.
No, I like it more. That is very irresponsible of you, Adric.
Astral plane. Yes, in a sense. I go from Heathrow Airport. This is not Heathrow Airport, no.
That's a fun line.
There's a lot of like really dry humor.
Yeah.
Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared.
Just that shot of Davison, just like, you what, mate?
I feel like Heathrow is like one of the weakest arcs in Classic Who. Because it's literally just he could be like, I need to get back to Heathrow.
Yeah, it's just an excuse for Tegan to be annoying / annoyed.
I mean, it is kind of funny, but it's also like, why do you have to keep saying it?
Also, can I just say, going back to the drawings Tegan made, those are really detailed. She should have been an art student.
Probably, yeah.
She should have been.
I mean, she does have like quite fashionable clothing sometimes.
Yeah.
For the time, anyway. Like artistically fashionable clothing for the time.
I'm trying to think of her outfit from season 20. No, her outfit from season 20 is somehow more bland than the Doctor's outfit. But like her season 21 outfit, yes.
Mm.
Well, it's not really close up.
Oh, vegetarian, you'll like this guy.
I don't automatically like someone if they're vegetarian. What if this guy's also a fascist? Like,
Well,
I'm
he
pretty
never-
sure Hitler was a vegetarian.
Okay. Bit of salt, bit of olive oil.
Angelaue Yintanga Tegan.
Is this an Aborigine?
Oh, coupon.
That...
And Peter.
You speak the dialect?
Well, he's an Australian Aborigine.
Well, I know.
Yeah, I knew it! He's a...
Yeah. Oh my... Okay, they're doing something interesting with Tegan.
Wow. I like that. This is foreshadowing. The message from the Aborigines is foreshadowing for the story.
His Majesty commands me to tell you that we arrive on planet Earth in 4 days. He invites you to complete your journey as his guests.
Who are you?
Oh.
We've already met.
I'm intrigued by
is
this.
enlightened. I am persuasion.
I'm pretty sure that was...
Persuasion.
Those are fucking... Yeah. Yeah. Those were the aliens from before that were with
Oh.
Monarch. And they look
oh.
like what the drawings Tegan made were.
Oh!
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Is this bloody Fear Her? Like reverse Fear Her?
So what you're saying is these are scribble monsters.
Wow, that was
Oh,
interesting.
I'm liking this.
That was really interesting, actually.
Yeah, yeah. I
But-
swear, everyone that comes on to Worst of Classic Who is like, "Oh my god, this story's so good." I'm doing a vaguely American accent because most of the people you have on here are like American, give or take Will.
And of course, Lord Slow is like anti-American.
Anti-American. He's against Americans.
Yeah, he always mocks them. He's like, "Oh my god, BritBox." So British.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Yeah. The only thing that's a bit like arguable is probably Adric's sexism, but I think also Adric's a tit anyway. So like,
Yeah, he's a tit who hates tits.
It's funny because knowing that this was Peter Davison's first, I was expecting him to be a bit like awkward, but actually, I'm finding that his sort of almost fresh-faced innocence is actually making the comedy work quite well because he's sort of it's quite dry, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, like with that whole you know, him responding to is that her astral plane?
Yeah.
And he's like, in a sense, it comes from Heathrow.
Anything else you want to say before we crack into part 2?
I hope Adric gets less sexist.
Yeah, because that's the only that's
only
really
hope.
the only like issue I'm having so far. I mean,
Yeah.
to be fair, it's not a massive because I don't think it's that out of character for Adric to say that. It's just a bit like shocking. It's like, whoa, where did that come
It's
from?
shocking. Yeah, well, I think it's not out of character for Adric to say a remark like that, but I think it's out of character. Well, nothing about him screamed sexist. Also, I'm just hoping that we're gonna get more interesting direction because although yes, the story isn't particularly directed by anyone memorable. Terence Dudley was a director. He directed a story in the previous season. I can't remember what.
It was Megalos, I think.
Oh, right, yeah. So I mean, Megalos had pretty interesting direction. I'll give it that. Not like probably it's probably in the better half in terms of the way the season looks. I mean, to be honest, the season did have good direction. Season 18. That's one thing I'll give it. So ideally, we'd have interesting direction in this story, but so far, all we've had is like that establishing shot at the beginning, and really these interesting floating tits. But yeah, but that's all. Also, I mean, a lot of the story does tend to have like the story. Although I don't think it has a visual identity, I do think its visuals are definitely something important. So I think we should really pay attention to how the story looks, because that may give us more insight into the depth the story has. Right
I like
now,
how their
it's
clothes
fine.
are the same color as their like skin when they're not in that form.
Yeah. In a way, it emphasizes how... It just emphasizes... It gives them a sort of identity. It makes you connect the dots.
Our planet Urbanca no longer exists. Inoxia, our sun, was an irregular variable.
Of course.
1,000 years ago.
We left before the end.
In time to escape the black hole.
Many of you?
3 billion.
Oh, there was a black hole. Oh. I kind of wish their planet stopped existing due to the events of the Gopolis in the previous season. That's what I would have done as script editor.
That would have been cool, yeah.
Yeah, that would have been cool. Like, I like it when Doctor Who references the immediate past, but in a subtle way like that, like grand events like that.
And you could have had the Doctor say, like, I had to save everyone to do that.
More and more. On no account is he to leave.
I love it when Peter Davison's Doctor, he tries to be funny like Tom's Doctor, but no one laughs at him, and he's just like, oh, well, okay, I'll keep that joke to myself.
That's definitely something to do with his arc.
A science concerned with the control mechanisms in machines.
What machine?
That's foreshadowing. That's foreshadowing for Earthshock.
I mean, here we are, 4 days from Earth, a spaceship with 3 billion and 3...
4 days. 4 to Doomsday.
3 billion Earthlings.
That's a very specific
God,
thing to
this
do.
was the 80s. 3 billion Earthlings. That's like how. That's how many humans were alive in the 1980s, I think.
God, we're up to 7
God,
now.
That's weird. Yeah, we're up to 7 billion. The story's obsessed with the number 4. 4 Earth representatives. They've been to Earth 4 times.
4 days to Earth.
They're 4 days to Earth. So the 4 to Doomsday could be a double entendre. Well, not double entendre. You know what I mean. Like, it could be a double meaning. Because they're the 4 to Doomsday. Maybe they're the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
They got separated again.
Yeah.
Come on, and try to keep calm. We'll get nowhere if you lose your head.
That does feel like a Tom line.
I wouldn't be surprised if some of these scripts are written for Tom.
Or at least written believing the Doctor would be similar.
This is kind of cool. Like, all these people from different generations, and they're like watching this dance.
The light on the plants converts carbon dioxide into carbohydrate.
And she would know because of Traken. What is this?
Traditional Chinese dance?
Oh, is this like a fight?
Maybe.
I hope it's a fight.
Or maybe a
Maybe it's a mating.
dramatic recreation of a mythical fight.
I love that just constant bass note. This ship has like atmosphere. Actually, it's got like a tech atmosphere.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it's
I
not
don't
quite.
think the ship looks boring.
It's not quite cyberpunk, but you know.
I'm sorry. Don't you do that
Oh
to
my.
her.
Adric, you want to fucking talk?
Adric's like, no one can be sexist to them except for me. Are they bowing?
I think so, yeah, because they're performers. They're not going to have a fight. They were probably
Damn it.
reenacting a mythical fight, as I said before.
That was a gay old clap. I love that.
I have a feeling Jacoby's master probably did that at some point in his life.
Is this going to be a fight?
This very well could be.
Hey.
Or maybe a rehearsed fight.
What a fatuous remark.
Ah, the flesh.
A fatuous remark. These are very interesting sets.
Although the aesthetic is never something that really makes me that interested in 80s Who, I do admit the set design itself, I very much appreciate.
There's a lot of detail put into it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I feel like I'm in an actual museum or something. Oh! Well done.
Was there a Mordor? Oh, he looks dead.
It's interesting seeing an Aborigine dance on a spaceship like this.
Yeah. Like, I think it's really cool and unique to have, like, different cultures represented.
It is not
Oh,
as
she-
it seems.
It is not as it seems.
She's traumatized by
I
that.
mean, I have a feeling that was just done so he could say, it is not as it seems. Because although, yes, we literally now see that it's not as it seems. Am I thinking too much into it? Like, because I think he's saying that because he's saying, like, everything is not as it seems. But then again, we kind of got that.
You're doing more themes than I am.
Yeah, but I've started to think like you, but exponentially.
This is me.
He looks a bit like Jeremy Corbyn. but no, but in all seriousness, okay.
It's got a very quite a deliberate pace, but I'm quite enjoying it. I don't mind. I think
Yeah.
it's interesting.
yeah, I'm very. I think all of the thing is, I can't exactly say what the concept is because we're shown what's going on, but we don't know why.
Yeah,
and we don't know the
it's still kind of a mystery at the moment, but
details.
we're sort of piecing the puzzle together, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It is interesting though. I think it's a really interesting story so far. Yeah, it's fascinating. This is quite unique. Like I feel like I have said this quite a few times before, but I feel like I haven't really seen a story that's actually quite like this. It's almost got it has similarities to things like the Ark in Space and a couple of other ones I've seen.
Yeah.
But it's a bit different, isn't it? It's a bit different.
Yeah, it is a bit different because it's like, although I do think the Ark in Space is better written. Well, it's Robert Holmes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Ark in Space is amazing.
But this definitely has its own sort of edge, its own sort of mystery, and it's just like, oh no, I'm just really enjoying it.
Yeah, no,
like,
I'm just sort of quietly, just sort of sitting here having a good time. It's not like it's not a belter. It's not like a big party, but I'm just like, I'm just sort of sitting here relaxed, just learning more about the story, just having a good time. It's almost
I feel like
it's almost like I'm having
watching it is.
It's like having a book read to you, if you know what I mean.
Like that cliffhanger very much makes me feel like yes, this was definitely written by a director because I think he clearly knew what he wanted.
Yeah, there's a lot of he's gone for striking visual cues in his plot beats.
Yeah.
I think there's only one thing I will say is and it's something that you probably couldn't have gotten away with. They maybe could have gotten away with it in the Hinchcliffe era, but I think the scene where the guy gets stabbed would have worked better if we'd actually seen the wound. But I don't think they could have shown it because of the parental rating. But it was just a bit awkward because I would have liked it if we had seen the blood. It would have been a lot more like striking, and Tegan running away would have been a lot more like understandable. But because we didn't really see it, it was a bit like what?
I'm fine with there not being blood because of the revelation that they're robotic.
Yeah, of course, I know that. I'm not saying it has to be blood, but I'm just saying I just wish like they'd actually shown like the stab being a bit more sort of lethal.
I think if they showed the stab and we saw like the guy stagger with the sword still in, which they could have done.
Yeah, and like if you'd done it like the way I would have done it is when the sword goes in, it's like you would have to try and simulate it in a way where the sword is shaking through him like you would if you were putting it through like a circuit board. It's like it would be quite a metallic sound and like sort of rattling as it goes in. I think I would have done that, and it would have been like a nice bit of foreshadowing for the cliffhanger.
I think what they did was fine. I think the only addition I would make is the one that I said.
Okay.
Because not only would it, be more impactful, but I would actually understand like seeing it, but also the lack of blood would also be consistent with what the cliffhanger is about to show.
Yes, of course. You're correct about that. I agree with the blood thing. But apart from that, photosynthesis, there's which of course ties into the fact that Nissa knows about Traken. Then you got the all the dances. Those are cool. I really like the dances.
I want to know how the actual plants tie into it.
Yeah.
Because
and obviously
Monarch have a scene where the smartest character in the room is explain a scientific concept and it not be relevant to the plot. Like this is part 2. We're still setting things up, but things are still things are being revealed, but I feel like it's still setting some stuff up.
And I noticed that Monarch is sitting in his room, like directing the traffic. He's sort of like watching people go. He's like when people start to go a bit too far to expose something that he doesn't want them to see, he starts to like give orders. Like he's like take the children at the end with Eirich and Nissa. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's sort of trying to control.
He very much wants it to be his perfect world. I'm not sure if there's going to be any explicit mention of what else I know about him, or if that's just the thing that I heard based on what someone said because of the way his character just is. I don't know how explicit it is. I will mention it at the end if it's not already blindingly obvious. But so far the only thing that hasn't happened that I know happens from what I remember is other than what I just said, The cricket ball scene.
Yeah, same.
And I want to know the context.
Yeah, because he's obviously going to have to go. He's going to have to go outside the spaceship for that.
Yeah.
Very
I
interesting.
think I can guess what happens because it sounds like something that would be obvious, but I want to know if they subvert my expectation on that. I still like this revelation.
Mm. It explains how they fit 3 billion on there.
Yeah. And it also explains why they're ice cold. I like how the Doctor's first reaction isn't disgust or confusion. He's like, it's incredible engineering.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
External and internal organs.
What about love?
Love.
The exchange of two fantasies, Your Majesty.
Thank you, Enlightenment.
The exchange of two fantasies.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is a clever script, and in a way, this is a more emotive way of doing it, and a more advanced way of doing the Cybermen. And in a way,
Yeah,
that
it's kind of
foreshadows their return.
it's kind of like a sidestep, isn't it? It's like a
Yeah. It's like not a complete rip-off due to the way it's being handled, but the core concept is very similar.
Yeah, it's more like an outside influence rather than survival.
I do like the idea that Eirich is seeing the good in these people, and that causes friction. And I feel like with an ensemble, there should be at least some level of friction. I wonder, is Eirich playing devil's advocate because he genuinely believes it, or is he doing it to get on their side, but in a way that benefits him and the rest of the TARDIS team? Either way, I'm fascinated.
I'm thinking the same question, actually. Is he doing it on purpose, or is he actually agree with them?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, well, I think we'll find out based on the way Eirich talks with the Doctor.
It's like an aggression inhibitor.
Your eyes are getting heavy.
Oh. Oh no, this is gonna take a nap. Fucking Will. Okay, now I'm gonna call Will out properly. He spoiled this for us.
Ooh. Are they wanting to convert her?
Yes.
Oh dear.
Because they literally just explained what they would do to convert people, and this is the first step.
Yeah, and he said one only harms what one fears, and he can sense that she fears him.
Yeah. And they want to give their gift of freeing from the flesh time. You know, like, Monarch genuinely believes he's God. Hence the whole monarchy kind of situation. He has a literal God complex. I guess everyone in each ethnic group looks like they're a part of a uniform.
Also, it's nice to have a Classic Who story where they're actually the actors from those countries.
Yeah. The closest they got is actors from around that general area who it wouldn't be offensive for them to play those ethnic groups, like Ping Cho in Marco Polo and a bunch of people in The Mind of Evil.
You'll get out of my way. What's it going to be? But everything's all right, I tell you. And in any way,
He's being manipulated.
Eirich, I'm warning you. Get out of my way. No.
I guess you could say he's been persuaded to see the enlightenment of Monarch's vision.
God, Janet Fielding's sass is just such a mood.
Yeah. No, genuinely, I think this is probably the best story for the season 19 crew as characters.
They're really good in this, surprisingly.
Because Nissa's making up for her lack of character by serving some other use for the plot that doesn't require having a character.
Peter Davison is surprisingly really good in his first performance as well. I'm very surprised.
Yeah.
I beg your Majesty's pardon.
I should think so indeed.
His hair looks like it's on a Ken doll. So they select intelligence to live.
Yeah. Oh, so is the TARDIS going to end up in space because Tegan's an idiot?
Possibly.
Well, Tegan's not an idiot, but she's acting.
Well, she's not an idiot, but she doesn't know what she's doing. That's the real way
She's
to put
acting irrationally, but she's acting out of thinking irrationally based off of her emotional response, which is very much understandable. So to clarify my previous comment, audience.
The penalty for my one and only attempt at revolt.
That's quite bleak. Being shoved in that drawer.
Yeah.
It's like a battery farm.
Someone else's identity circuit could be plugged into that body. So Monarch's got two plans going on. And they're not linked whatsoever. Apart from both being a result of his god complex, I would think. Or both having to do with his god complex. Because he's just going to be the ruler of Earth once it's inhabited, but because of his god complex, he wants to prove that he is indeed God.
Trying to move the TARDIS.
Oh, good grief.
Take them.
Yes, I know.
I think this is honestly an effective use of 4 companions because it's like...
This is kind of like what I would want, what I really wanted like Series 11 to be like, if you know what I mean? Like there's actual conflict.
The conflict with one another directly impacts the plot and keeps it moving.
Oh, she's actually done it.
She's caused dematerialization.
Well, well. Interesting. Very interesting.
If this was a Hinchcliffe story, you would know the sword was gonna like start striking before the cliffhanger. But I still think this is just as effective, just less traumatizing.
Well, you can't trip him off with the scarf this time.
Yeah.
I'm still really liking this story. Like it's
Yeah.
I really don't understand.
'Cause now
I think the thing is I think people might find it boring to watch because there's no action. But I don't think that's a bad thing. I think for me personally,
Action isn't
I
necessary.
can enjoy stories like this that are very, a slow burn where you information is fed to you about what's happening. I think it's really interesting, especially the content of it as well.
I personally think if this was written a bit differently, this could be turned into a psychological horror. I don't think this is quite a psychological horror, but I do think this has elements of it because of the way it's designed. It's like as a story. And also I very much think this is very standard structure-wise for Classic Who, because part 1's the stuff where you're introduced to it, concepts are starting to build. Part 2 is where the concepts are developed and you get more intrigue. Part 3 is where you learn what's actually going on, and Part 4 is the resolution, the climax of it. Although, I do feel like the pacing in this story, I don't want to say wonky because that implies it was bad, because I don't want to say the pacing in this particular part was bad, because I don't think it was. Disjointed might be a better word, because towards the start, where we were constantly getting fed information, I almost was like, well, okay, this is a lot to process. And then we were fed a bit more information to do with, like, Monarch wanting to prove that he's God. But now with all this new context, we're starting to see conflict arise within our characters.
Yeah.
And that's why it justifies its runtime. It doesn't just blow its load too quickly. It blows its load quickly, I will admit that, but it does stuff with it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. I think that it can get away with having this kind of pace because of it's, I wouldn't necessarily say overly complex, but it has a complexity and there's a uniqueness to it, which means you can sort of stretch it out, like some aspects of it, and sort of just feed the information across. And obviously there was that bit at the start, but do you get what I mean?
I don't think it's I feel like I get what you mean, but I wouldn't say that based on the concept department. I feel like the concept earlier on, I think everything was paced well because it was a slow burn, but everything was a slow burn. Here, all the concepts have been fully explained very quickly in part 3. So we were just over halfway through, and now we know what's fully going on.
Yeah.
But the conflict arising from that is causing developments in the plot.
I guess the only thing we don't know is how the two different plots connect.
They connect very tangentially. There's definitely a point where it connects, and that point is his god complex.
Yes.
But his god complex is a part of one of the points, or part of one of the threads. Like, I'm almost thinking of it as a graph. So, like, tangentially, the point is his god complex. I'm explaining it for the viewers. You can't really see it, Connor, but like, one of my hands is vertical and the other's horizontal, touching it.
Yeah.
The point of contact is his god complex. The vertical hand is just signifying the element, the Earth invasion element, because his god complex is a part of that, but not necessarily the root cause. However, the god complex is branching out into the horizontal hand, and that is the wanting to know he's God. So I do think there is a connection, but they are very extremely loosely connected. They're, like, as I said, tangentially connected, with a visual example for the audience. But yeah, I feel like I'm interested to see if part 4 builds on anything that has gone before, because part 4's job is to tie it up, and as I said, this has very much got that structure, so I don't know if part 4 is going to introduce anything new. I would hope that if it does, it's able to wrap it up satisfyingly.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see what happens when the Doctor and Tegan finally talk again, because what she's done is quite an extreme measure.
I hope the Doctor is at least empathetic.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens in that regard, and the conflict as well with Eirich and Nyssa and Tegan too. Like the fact that he's, very persuaded by Monarch. There's potential for some interesting drama in part 4, I think.
Although in the cliffhanger, Eirich was very much against the Doctor's death. But not because Eirich hasn't actually sided with Monarch on everything. He's still loyal as a friend. He just believes in Monarch's ideology.
Yeah. So what I'm hoping for, now that we know almost everything about the plot, what I'm hoping for from here is we get some drama. That comes as a result of knowing this information.
We were already getting drama, and I want more drama. And I want everything to be tied up in a neat little bow, and I want everything to be handled satisfyingly. Oh, I actually kind of want his time travel experiment to go correctly, in a way. I kind of want to see him go to the Big Bang, or beyond, and see him go mad when he realizes he's not God.
Would be very
interesting. I don't
interesting.
know if that will happen.
He might be stopped.
That's what I would do.
He might be stopped before it happens.
I mean, this story feels like it could become very pretentious.
Possibly.
Because in a way, it already kind of was, but in the right sort of way. I feel like the Fifth Doctor's run should have room to be pretentious, because the Fifth Doctor, in a way, whether he means to be or not, is a fairly humble character because of his, I guess, meekness. I know they're not the same thing, but in a way that could cause him to become more humble, and the overall vibe to be more humble, because that's what they were going for. They weren't going for this audacious thing. They were going for the opposite. I really do like this title sequence. You're just making noises at this point.
It's a lot less than he usually has.
Yeah, he should have had other junk in there.
No, leave well alone.
Yeah, you should have done that the first time.
Yeah, but
she was in panic mode.
I'm so glad to hear you say that.
Oh, he's an autocrat, of course, but I now believe a benevolent one.
He is.
Anyone can see that.
He's not telling the truth, is he?
Obviously not.
Yeah.
Because as he said, as was implied, that was his plan, and he's carrying out his plan.
Mm-hmm.
We're not sponsored, by the way. Genesis of Androzani is not sponsored by Iron Brew.
But I am sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends.
Idiot, you're not so much gullible as idealistic, I suppose. Deprived delinquent. Do you want to save Nissa? Of course I do. Then shut up.
I like how the Doctor's not taking any of his shit.
Oh my god, that is great.
It's like, people say that the Doctor and Eirich have this sort of chemistry that is not enjoyable to watch because they just bicker. Here, I feel like the conflict is earned, justified, and enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. They really used this TARDIS team really well in this story.
Yeah, they do.
Peter Davison's really good in this.
He really is.
He really is. He's trying to make a really good impression on his first one.
Yeah. I mean, obviously that scene was justified to give us a break from the Doctor and Eirich, give us some more Tegan, but it also really worked. Like,
Tegan. He's chosen very important races to control.
yes.
Ah. They've snuck under the dress. Oh, is this Greek?
Yes.
There we go. They're also very important as well.
I studied classical Greek in high school, and we learned about their culture. Wrestling was definitely a sport they participated in. The Greeks were quite important, but I do feel like the Romans would have made more sense. But this isn't a decision I'm going to be so hung up on, so I'm not going to bring it up again. I was just letting you know. That's how I felt. It's not going to affect my view on the story.
The interesting role for the Fifth Doctor is because he has 3 companions, he has more people that he has to get out of trouble.
And I guess that justifies his panicked nature. Nissa just feels like the spare pair of hands. Also the spare expositionary.
Oh, she's like Yaz.
Just like... she is the Yaz of the group. I do feel like she's functionally solid because she... As I noticed this in Castrovalva as well. She is there to be the third companion, but her purpose is for the other companions to bounce off of. And that does make her inferior, but that doesn't make her useless. Yaz genuinely feels useless.
At least in Series 11.
I can't remember anything she did in Series 12 for the most part.
Like Praxius, Can You Hear Me? Maybe Spyfall, I don't know.
Yeah, Can You Hear Me? Yeah.
Bit of Nikola Tesla.
Yeah, I think I need to rewatch it.
She does do a bit of police work in Fugitive.
Or she tries to before the fucking sex offender shows up.
Oh, here we go.
This is the scene. I like the idea of this scene, certainly.
Swimming in space with a rope.
If they made this shot today, it would look stunning.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And I think the cinematography is really good. I think the only thing that's bringing it down is the fact that it was made in 1981 and 1982.
Oh.
Oh. He's pulling himself back in. And that's Persuasion gone.
Ah.
Because he was an android too. Which, although we weren't explicitly
He's in
told
like a
that,
dance
I think
position.
makes yeah. I mean, I like how we weren't explicitly told that, so if you didn't realize that he was actually meant to be an android, it would be a surprise, but if you realize that, it's still satisfying to know that you were right.
Oh dear.
Oh.
Oh no.
Oh, this is actually tense.
I know, right?
Because the Doctor... Fair enough, there's stakes, because although the Doctor shouldn't really be able to survive in the vacuum, he has the oxygen. And I guess it's a thing Time Lords can do now, I guess. So I'm not annoyed by it as I thought I was gonna be.
Like the little like wave she did.
Yeah.
Oh!
Report enlightenment.
Oh,
Jesus.
the Doctor... Adric's being sexist.
Adric! Oh my god.
And they're both gone.
I think, to be fair, that was necessary.
Yeah, and so was the scene in the Doctor. They needed to be put in their place. Yeah. No. For the record, I am joking. I am not an actual sexist. Duh.
Right. Oh, here's the scene.
Yeah. He's doing it to propel himself.
Oh, I like that.
And he bounced it back to him, and that propels him even further.
He must be like as light as a feather.
Well, in space, no one has any weight.
Oh, that's true, yeah. So it's just the weight,
Oh, I like this.
the force of the ball, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm liking this a lot.
They actually used his cricketing to make the plot happen.
Yeah.
Are you alright? How on earth did you...
You're spoiling my concentration.
Me at Tegan whenever she breathes.
Damn, what a good scene. Oh, he's being culturally insensitive here.
Yeah, by barging his way through a parade. He's being culturally insensitive multiple times over, because he's barging through multiple cultures' parades. And I guess that's, in a way, symbolic of what he was planning to do with Earth. Because he was planning to be their monarch, their god.
Breathe through your nose, mate. Breathe through your nose.
He's actually going... He's literally doing that. Oh my god. This script's actually really good. I never expected to like this one as much as I do. What the fuck? What is it with this series and just making everyone like what's going on?
It's meant to be the worst of Classic Who, yet I like almost every story I've watched on it.
You say almost.
Almost, yeah.
Monarch's poison. The last danger
Oh, that's a lot of poison. That's a lot more than I was expecting.
Jesus.
I'm guessing it's concentrated poison, so like one atom of it would probably kill so many people. Okay, that was a bit too quick of a finale.
Wait, what?
No. I don't like that.
That's what Harry was talking about.
Wait, what did he say? He just shrinks?
Oh, he's reduced him to the size that he does with other people.
That is symbolic. Okay, yeah, okay. I don't hate it as much now. I just think the pacing of it was
That was
very
a bit
off.
sudden.
Yeah.
Are you coming?
No, I think we'll go on to another planet and try and start again.
All the cultures blending together.
Oh, that's nice. It would be an actual It would be like an... It would be like an actual, like, you know, diverse planet, I guess, with, like, you know, a blend and, like, a, you know, good ratio of culture.
Yeah, I mean, our planet's got more races.
Yeah,
but
of course.
Theirs has.
But I'm talking about just like ratio-wise,
an
like
equal
race to
ratio.
race,
Yeah.
and lots of multicultural as well.
Doctor,
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that leads into.
So okay, so so I would say that's a really good story with a bit of a funny ending.
I think it needed 5 more minutes. Not gonna lie.
That was fucking hilarious.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay. I guess that's over now.
I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed
I
the
enjoyed
ending.
it a lot more than
yeah.
I was expecting.
Oh yeah, that was
Oh my god.
that was a cracking story, man. I really liked that. This does not deserve to be on the worst list. Jesus.
Yeah. It doesn't like it's nowhere near the best, but it's close to the best and the worst, let's face it. Like a lot closer.
So, near the start, you said something along the lines of you'll say something if they don't explain it. So, did they explain what you were thinking about?
I think I've forgotten what
Maybe something to do with
I was
Monarch?
thinking. Oh yeah, no, sorry. It was him believing he was God.
Oh yeah, well yeah, that definitely.
That's what I was on about. Yeah, that definitely was explicit. And it was sort of implied that he had a god complex, but he has a literal god complex.
Yeah. Anyway, so
I wish that was explored a bit more.
yeah, I think you could have done like this. It's a really good story, but I think you actually could have done even more with it.
I think it actually. Do you know what? I think it should have had another part.
Yeah.
Yeah, one more part to do the sort of ending I was thinking.
Maybe you could. Maybe I mean, maybe what if 5 or 6 parts, depending on how much you want to do, and then you actually have him try to execute his plan, and then the Doctor has to stop that plan.
Yeah.
That could have made it like you could have bumped it up to like classic territory if you'd done that. I reckon.
Yeah.
But
I think this story does deserve to be longer. Also, the ending was a bit sudden.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the Destruction Monarch, I do feel like was definitely conceptually good.
I feel like this, this story
could have been.
I reckon this story was rock solid until like the last 60 seconds.
The last 60 seconds where they're like, oh fuck, we've only got 60 seconds left, let's wrap it up.
Yeah, I know.
But I don't think that's enough to deter me from enjoying it as much as I do.
It's not a bad. It's not a bad ending. It's just really weirdly fast.
It's in a way that's how I feel about Night Terrors, because but this experience is worse because the ending I do think is a better ending, but at the same time it's much faster than Night Terrors' ending. This doesn't have room to breathe.
It's almost as fast as the Power of 3 ending, actually.
I would say it's probably faster.
Yeah, although not as bad because the Power 3 one ending is bullshit. But like this this one does have a setup and an explanation for it, and it's not just Sonic saves the day.
And it is faster. This one is faster, but this one doesn't have any room to breathe afterwards. Well, I think Power of 3 definitely did. But I think this one's really good, and honestly, it's definitely going to make the top 10 Davisons for me. Because this era, I don't think it's hard to think of stories that I would like from it, but it's not real. There's not really anything I would be. I struggle to think of something I'd be passionate about, because this era has that whole vibe of, as I was saying earlier, it has a sort of humble vibe to it. But that's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because when you do stuff really interesting, it's balanced out by the vibe. So stuff like Kinder and Enlightenment and, well, Forward to Doomsday. really benefit from this era's vibe. But at the same time,
Obviously, Cave of Androzani is the magnum opus.
Yes, because it's actively going against this vibe and is culminating the Fifth Doctor's character arc. And that's actively going against the vibe, but that's the point. But here the vibe is definitely a humble vibe, and the more pretentious you go, I think the easier it is to it basically contrasts it and neutralizes one another in a beautiful kind of way. That's why, I mean, I think the main reason I'm not really a fan of season 18 is because it's got so many elements that clash. Like, you've got pretentiousness, which I don't think is a bad thing, by the way, before you have a go at me, Connor. Like, I do like what Warriors Gate wants to do and what the Gopolis wants to do, but I feel like because they're pretentious, I don't think the vibe is trying to be humble. I think the vibe is trying to be, let's try and quieten this very loud era. But that just ends up making, like, well, when I say quieten this loud era, you know what I mean, because the Tom Baker era,
especially
as a whole,
season
was very
17.
much loud.
Season 17 is very loud.
Yes, specifically season 17. This,
I feel like
season 18
interestingly, even though
like,
it's not with the same characters, I feel like the series 5 quietens down quite a bit compared to series 4. Apart from maybe the finale and maybe the opener, but a lot of it is a lot more it's a lot more like breezy, whereas series 4 was very bombastic. So
but it knew what vibe it wanted to go for. Meanwhile, I'm arguing that season 18 didn't know what vibe it wanted to go for. It just wanted to be quieter, but didn't know how to do it. Especially seeing as how Tom was loud and bombastic. And I feel like the more muted performance could work if it was intentional. But because it's unintentional, it just comes across as not.
There's a lot of spontaneity
really
to it, whereas with Peter Davison, everything's very deliberate.
Everything's very deliberate, and it feels like it's a controlled environment where the more imaginative you get, the better you get.
Is it fair for me to say that I respect Peter Davison's work on season 19 more than Tom's on season 18, but I personally like Tom's performance more, if that makes sense? I enjoy Tom's spontaneousness.
Respecting this more is fair because of, I feel like that's an accurate thing to say, because I would say I respect it more.
Like, if I was a director saying I need to judge my actors on the standard of how hard they're working and how much effort they're putting in, I feel like Peter Davison's work rate is a lot more professional than Tom's was in season 18. But at the same time, as a viewer and as an enjoyer of the Doctor Who, I really like that
sorts of media that you like.
Almost that sort of spontaneous, emotional, just that kind of energy that Tom brings. The way they had Adric but be persuaded by a monarch. That created a lot of tension. Then you've also got Tegan, who was scared and witnessed someone being stabbed and felt scared and also wants to go back to Heathrow and all that. And then you got
Nissa, who was needing to be the victim, needing to be the damsel in a way.
And I like how the Doctor, ran around trying to get them all out of their situations where he had to lie to Adric in front of the camera and then take him up into the grandstands and tell him he was an idiot and can tell him why and try and convince him to change his mind. Then obviously get Nissa out of the peril that she was in, being the damsel, and then use rope and a cricket ball to save Tegan from the TARDIS, which was outside.
Yeah, I do think that scene's very clever. People get hung up on the fact that, he's breaking the laws of physics.
But you realise that it's explained that he had to put himself in a state to do it, though, and afterwards he had to get put in that little
it was set up earlier that he could do that.
Yeah, and then afterwards he had to go and have that thing done to him where he was hyperventilating because of what he had to do. And that's why, that explains why when he's inside the TARDIS, he says, "You're breaking my concentration," because he has to keep concentrating to do it, otherwise he'll pass out.
Like, I do feel like that scene is infamous because people don't like it, but space is dangerous. The vacuum of space is dangerous, and I guess that puts stakes onto Doctor. And I don't think oxygen would conflict with this because the Doctor has to be in space without a helmet, and that you could have like the respiratory bypass system, you know, because as well, I count it as canon. Sharda can explain stuff like that, and you know, that was a very different scenario, so I wouldn't think that would contradict. So. But this is definitely a nice exploration as to how space is dangerous. Like, the story does a lot of things when you really think about it.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, it's tackling god complexes. It's tackling, in a sense, eugenics, but not to a great extent. It's not like the face of evil. Because they were carefully selected with their mind. It is a traditional, like, alien invasion stuff, but it's also, in a sense, you could say, okay, this might be a stretch, but it could be about cultural appropriation as well.
Possibly.
Because
at the end of the story, all of the cultures come together and they decide to, you know, start new on a new planet together.
Yeah.
And there seems to be
But I
unity.
was mainly referring to how I've already forgotten the name of the species, but like the invading species were in a way trying to pose as, well, I guess pose as humans as studied from all these races. And because they're studying the culture and imitating it just so they could blend in and then take over. And yeah, it also tackles classism, a monarchy in general.
And
there's
a lot.
Although I don't think it necessarily is trying to tackle this, I do think it is definitely an example. It's showing examples of how a almost fascistic regime can actually sound enticing. Hence why Eirich is, you know, doing that. But I don't think that was an intended theme. I think that was more so a thing that, like, you know how with Russell, when you notice something that's in a script that was probably not intended, but actually benefits the experience. That's what I'm on about right now.
Do you have a specific example?
Eirich, I think at one, I don't have a specific example, but I remember like the other day, like we were in a call and you brought up something. Was it about Silence in the Library, about River Song? Was that the one you're talking about? I don't know.
Okay, because I did bring that up. I brought up,
but it might have been. I
brought up the implication of at the time that it came out, and if you're watching it without knowing what happens after.
Oh no! Yeah, it is about that. Yeah.
I said that for the 10th Doctor's character, either way you go, it's an interesting road. One road to a completion of his arc to what he always dreamed of with River Song, and then the other option is what actually happened was he has to die knowing that he has to change into someone else to find that person.
Possibly neither of them were intended. But I do think that definitely that implication of what they wrote definitely reinforces his arc, sort of how I think that what they were doing with Eirich reinforces everything to do with Monarch as a character. Like, I do think the story is a lot of wanky bollocks, but it's like good wanky bollocks, you know?
I agree.
Because, yeah, like, I feel like this. Now, you're gonna hate me for saying this, but I think this is what Warriors Gate wanted to be, but wasn't.
Well, they're very different stories.
They are very different stories.
Warriors Gate's a lot more like high concept than Fort of Doomsday.
Yeah, but I feel like with Fort of Doomsday, it definitely executes itself better.
I would disagree, but fair enough.
I do think the direction Warriors Gate is obviously better.
I mean, I will admit that Warriors Gate's not for everyone. It's very very
it's
out
not
there.
for me. It's not for me, but I at least appreciate it on the fundamental level of I at least get what it wants to do, and what it wants to, and when it succeeds in what it wants to do, it's actually very entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't enjoy it. The plot was not for me.
Okay.
It was literally just the plot, not the concepts, and the concepts kind of ran dry in the second half for me for that. But for this, although the concepts stopped flooding in the second half, as a lot of Classic Who has like a lot of the concepts not really, a lot of all the concepts really happen in the first two parts, but then stories that I like tend to, well, I guess build on them, or I would notice them building up, because Warriors Gate, I just didn't really see anything built up on them.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think there's a reason why there's quite a few New Who fans that aren't fans of part 3s of Classic Who stories, and the reason why is because that's when they usually stop introducing new ideas, which is something that a lot of that's what a lot of 21st century TV watchers are interested in, is seeing new ideas introduced all the time, which is something that Moffat does quite a lot in his scripts. When you think about episodes that he's written, a lot of the time he will introduce new ideas constantly throughout the story, whereas with Classic Who, they tend to stop doing that after the halfway point and then focus on the actual plot and developing that and the drama. If you know what I mean.
I think part of the reason why I like World Enough in Time the Doctor Falls, because, as you're saying, a lot of the ideas built up were in part 1, but the plot changes halfway through, so it is a completely different experience. Like, halfway through the story. Like,
that is a very Moffat thing. He loves doing that, where
he loves changing the plot, but it is directly affected by the consequences of part 1, and you get a lot of drama out
Moffat sort of does these like pseudo two-parters, if you know what I mean, where the two episodes are linked, but they're almost separate.
I think Heaven Sent and Hellbent are two very different stories, and that's why I don't count them as the same story.
Oh, I don't either. But I'm talking more about things like, World Enough in Time, Doctor Falls, or like Time of Angels, Flesh and Stone, or Pandora Opens Big Bang. Like, it's like he's married two one-parters together. You know what I mean? Like, he's married two single-part stories together as connected. Like, they're connected very strongly, but they are very different.
Yeah, he does tend to do that with two-part finales. But a lot of his other two-parters, I don't think Time of Angels, Flesh and Stone, they don't really change the story,
they changed the location. Like, in the first one, they're in the caves, and the second one, they're in their forest.
Yeah, but it's still the same area.
And like I was saying, in the second one, they still introduced new ideas that weren't in the first one.
Yeah.
So that is a very Moffat-y thing. And that's, I think, something that a lot of people that are New Who fans, especially that era, are a big fan of, and that's why they don't find Classic Who as engaging, because in the second half of most four-parters, they stop introducing ideas.
Yeah, but here I feel like... I mean, I like the formula of four-parters in Classic Who and two-parters in New Who. I like both formulas. I like them a lot. But what I like more are good stories, and this is a story that utilizes its formula, utilizes its characters, utilizes its themes, and just utilizes everything about it to form a nice, tightly written story that, yes, does need some improvements, like, need I mention Eirich in the first few scenes, and need I mention the ending. But apart from that, I think this is very solid.
But I agree. I also think that Monarch as a villain is very unique, especially the performance. It's a lot more controlled, and it's a lot less manic, which I think is a nice breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Because as much as I love camp villains, but I do like the occasional sort of more somber, a bit, not necessarily somber, but a bit more intellectual, a bit more sort of controlled sort of villain, if you know what I mean.
I mean, the last time we had a villain that was more like that, I mean, Scaroth was more so a blend of that, but also a bit of camp theatrics.
Oh, Scaroth is just the best of all worlds, really.
Watch. Yeah. I mean, Scaroff's one of the greatest Doctor Who villains of all time.
Of
so
course.
I can't exempt. So, and I don't think Monarch compares, but I do feel like Monarch is a breath of fresh air. He's good. He's really good for what he is. And my only issue, or one of my issues with Forge of Doomsday is that here's the thing. Like, I usually, when I tend to review stuff that I watch, I review it for what it is. I don't review it for what it isn't. But I feel like here, the story definitely paid attention to itself and had a lot of elements that had, okay, we've set this up and we're going to pay off. The whole time travel stuff was not paid off. It was set up, it was developed, but we didn't actually get a payoff. He was killed right before we would have gotten any sense of payoff, because he wanted the TARDIS. But I think an ending... I feel like an ending that would have been more suitable is that the Doctor and co take him back to the dawn of the universe. He doesn't see himself. And then he gets so angry, tries to attack them for being heretics, but then that causes the vial to break, and then he gets taken down to size. Because I do feel like him getting taken down to size was the right move. I just feel like the context surrounding that should have been more in time to his character. So, although that does sound like me criticizing it for what it isn't, as I said, the story pays attention to itself. And that was like probably the only thing that I think was set up that wasn't actually paid off. Also, another thing linked with the ending, the thing with Nyssa is I don't think that was necessarily set up. I don't think it was actually properly set up. It was literally there as a cliffhanger. It was sudden. Yeah, that's why I'm thinking maybe another part would have benefited this story. Because then maybe towards the end of part 4, something would have happened. And then part 5 would have been tying in with the Monarch sort of thing. I do think most of part 4 was perfectly fine, but I do think you could have gotten another episode out of it, but I don't think this would have... I think if you were to make this a 6-part, you would have had the story out a bit more.
You probably would have had to you probably would have had to sacrifice Black Orchid, wouldn't you? If you wanted to fit it in.
I'd be fine with that.
Realistically.
I'd be fine with that.
Or you would have had to make...
I prefer this to Black Orchid.
Or you would have had to make another story less, like, not as long.
I'd rather have a 5-part Forge to Doomsday and a 3-part Time Flight.
Yeah.
And then we also get to keep Black Orchid because I like that one.
Yeah. But 3-part Time Flight, 5-part Forge to Doomsday. That sounds reasonable.
That would have been my ideal. Because with this, I don't think 6 parts would suit it. Otherwise, you'd need to make it even slower. And I think
maybe 5. 5 would be good.
The pace is nice and slow, but any slower, and I really think it would drag.
I think it was just right. I think it was just on the edge of what it needed to be. You know.
Obviously, I would prefer it if it was a bit pacier, like Hinchcliffe Holmes era. But this, I don't mind slow burns.
Good.
I feel like slow burn stories are perfectly adequate, and
it shows that you're not necessarily requiring like style over substance methods. It shows that you actually do enjoy when a more sort of traditional kind of unfold the story in a natural way rather than having to have it be fast for your own entertainment.
So what you're saying is you respect my opinion a bit more.
Well, I mean, I agree. I really like slow burns as well. If I didn't, I wouldn't like as many classic stories as I do.
For me, yeah. Slow burns need to be done right for me, and I feel like if a story's too slow, it's too slow.
I think my favorite example of a slow burn is probably the Power of the Daleks, because it's on like this wire thread of tension.
Power of the Daleks works. I think my only real issues with Power of the Daleks, like, I don't find the earlier episodes that enjoyable only because the Daleks aren't really in it as much to counteract my lack of enjoyment with the Doctor's characterization. And I know that's probably just a me problem with that, but that still affects my enjoyment of the episode, which is why I wouldn't give Power a 10. But I do agree that the way the Daleks are introduced is perfectly handled, and the way they continue throughout the story is also perfectly handled. So naturally, yeah, Power of the Daleks is a slow burn done right. And my issues are nothing to do with that. My issues do affect my enjoyment of the story, but not that much. I still think it's a classic.
Right, yeah. So this was written by Terence Dudley, who directed Meglos and also went on to do Black Orchid and The King's Demons. I thought Terence Dudley
also wrote Canine and Company. He also wrote Canine and Company, I think.
Okay.
Like Girl's Best Friend. I think he also wrote that.
Right. I thought he.
I watched it recently.
I thought he did a really good job. And you can, like you said, you can definitely tell that a director wrote this because there's a lot of visual beats.
Yes, and that was really enjoyable to watch. It made it interesting to watch, especially seeing as how I'm not really a fan of like dingy spaceships.
Well, it made
like,
the direct because the direction was done by John Black. It made his job really easy to follow the instructions of like the script. Because the person who wrote it understands what being a director is like, especially considering he directed an episode of Doctor Who 1 year earlier. So he knows what it's like to be a director on this specific show. It made John Black's job much easier to get it right. And I think that the direction is actually really strong.
It's probably... I do think that this is probably the best looking episode since Warriors Gate. And I know there hasn't been many stories since Warriors Gate, but like,
I think that's fair. I think that's fair.
But before that, it was probably the best directed thing since. It would be unfair to say Shada because that was unfinished.
I think State of Decay
the
is
only
pretty
one
brilliantly directed.
It is pretty brilliantly
and Full
directed,
Circle too.
Okay, it's unfair because season 18 is really well directed, but come on, this stands out. This still stands out.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's still very, very good.
Because this is getting into the era where direction is getting a lot better.
Oh yeah.
Because you did have highlights in the 60s and 70s, such as like Enemy of the World and
Web of Fear.
Oh yeah, Web of Fear.
War Games, obviously.
War Games, yeah, and
all of Douglas Camfield and
Space.
Douglas Camfield and Chris Barry especially.
Yeah. And Barry Letts whenever he didn't want to overuse CSO.
David like Maloney and bloody what's his name? I can't remember his name now. Damn it. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Who's the what did this person direct that you're thinking of?
Fuck, I can't remember now. It's escaped me. Damn it. Oh well.
No. But I do feel like the direction or the quality of direction has ramped up. I do feel like season 18 alone proved that Doctor Who is... It's going to hit different now. It's going to look better. Even if the budget's still really low, they're going to utilize it a lot better. Because, let's face it, the Graham Williams era looked utter shite for the most part, apart from when they were filming on location.
Well, to be fair,
that couldn't really save the power of Kroll.
To be fair, in most of season 16, they do shoot on location, and I think that really shows. I do think horror. Really I do think horror Fangrock and Image of the Fendar look great. Yes, and City of Death, obviously, and Shada.
Yeah, but then again, those were predominantly on location.
I actually do think Creature from the Pit looks really good, but that's mainly because Chris Barry directed it. Like, he's such a good director.
It looks good for what it is, yeah.
Chris Barry makes it look really atmospheric because of his, like, he's just so good
the
at
direction,
doing that.
I do admit the direction doesn't really hold my attention, but that's not me saying the direction is bad. I'm just saying the direction isn't.
And even though Nightmare of Eden has a bland set, I do think the shadowing that it uses is really well done. But in terms of budget, yes, the Graham Williams era it does look a bit cheap sometimes, especially on like stories like Underworld and Invasion of Time, especially stand out for looking cheap.
Yeah.
But part of that was to do with the fact that there was a stock market crash.
Yeah, but here it's showing we're going to use our budget effectively. And even though not everything will look good, they're going to make it as good as they can make it look.
one of my favorite things about the cricket ball scene, like the way it looked, because the obviously you had space and like a static TARDIS, but one of my favorite things is on the side shot, the way the ship looked in the foreground of space. I really liked.
Yeah. I just liked that whole positioning. It made the story feel like it had scope, because this was a massive ship and the Doctor looked tiny. I liked the perspective of that shot. Also, something that I liked is that how the TARDIS looked like it moved when the Doctor was on it. It made it actually feel like it was shot in space.
Yeah, of course.
And the fact that my suspension of disbelief was very strong in that moment, despite how much I've criticised how space looked, how the ship looked, how the CSO was.
Yeah, it almost reminds me of
honestly.
It reminds me of that scene, and I think it's in
subtle detail.
I think it might be in. Is it the Time of Angels when? Is it Time of Angels or Day of the Moon where River? It's Time of Angels, isn't it? Where she jumps off the ship into the TARDIS.
No, that's Day of the Moon.
Day of the Moon, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, she jumps off a building and lands inside the swimming pool.
It's Time of Angels where she floats away, right?
She floats away into the TARDIS. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, because they're very similar scenes.
I feel like the stuff shot inside the ship in Time of Angels looked really good, but I feel like the scope didn't really... I don't feel like it reached the same scope because it went by so quickly. Here, we had time to process the fact that they're in space. Yep. Things happen slowly in space, but it was still a really tense scene because we know that they can't spend too long in space. Because although the Doctor could survive like 6 minutes and not really take much external damage, he could die. So yeah, I think the story is really, like, the scope of the story, despite the lack of action, does feel impactful. I feel
if it wasn't for Tegan being in it and them having to find a way to cut her out of the plot for a bit with the TARDIS, we may not have even gotten any action.
Yes. So Tegan was utilised well.
Yeah.
And I guess that subverts what your expectation of Tegan would be, because although she did put everyone in a predicament, if I'm looking at Tegan more as an element in the story, I'm starting to like her more. Because, like, I think I'm starting to mature with my views on what makes a good character. Because they may not have an enjoyable personality, but they may have to be functional to the story. I'm glad
you're starting to think this way, because it's a much more interesting way to look at characters than just, do I find their personality likable? Like, that's a very surface level way of looking at it, and a lot of people do that.
I mean, the reason why I'm like that with Clara is because the way she interacts with the story makes her, like, I get the vibe that Stephen Moffat wants us to see her as perfect, even though he's trying to, like, add flaws to her, which flaws are fine, but not only is she flawed, which, yes, is also a perspective we see her as, but when I say perfect, I mean we're meant to see her as almost an equal to the Doctor, but, like, she does actions that make me feel like I do not like this person, which, if that's meant to mirror the Doctor in this season, that just makes two unlikable characters. Because I'm specifically talking about Series 8 more than Series 9.
Yeah, well, the 9, unfortunate thing about that...
I think it works better in Series 9.
The unfortunate thing about that is the relatable character in that series is meant to be Danny Pink, but Samuel Anderson's performance is just really wooden. And
he's hardly in it. B, he's a bit wooden.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem. And
I mean, I think clashing characters and concept can be interesting. It's just in this one, I was like, oh, it doesn't really fit together for me.
Yeah.
Anyway,
because, like, yeah.
Go check out my videos about that, because I didn't even
I didn't even know Danny Pink was meant to be a relatable character. That's how badly he was handled. So that makes my perspective go on to Clara, who is unlikable and clashing with the Doctor, who's also unlikable.
Well, I suppose that makes that to round it back to Fort of Doomsday. I guess that means that Clara's disjointed writing really puts Tegan in perspective, if you know what I mean.
It makes me appreciate Tegan more because I just found her annoying. Like years ago, if you asked me what I thought about Tegan, I'm like, oh, she's very annoying. I was the same. The worst companion.
I was the same.
But I'd be like, oh no, she's annoying. But she is, and that's the point.
I did a video in.
But she's annoying in the right way.
I did a video in 2018, I think it was, and she was in my bottom 5 companions. But that would not be the case now. I've changed my mind on Tegan.
If she is with me, which I doubt, even if she's in my bottom 10, it's because I like a lot of other characters more.
Yeah, we've been blessed with a lot of very good companions in this show.
But here's the thing. I think I'd say I prefer Tegan to Susan because I feel like Tegan very much lives up to what her concept is. And she also functions the way her concept intends her to function. And how the writers are intending her to function. She's much more of a harmonious execution than Susan was, and that makes her more enjoyable. Especially seeing as how we actually get moments of levity with Tegan a lot. I also
think part of it is that in hindsight, Susan means a lot more to the show than originally intended, because that now we know that the Doctor's like a Time Lord and all that. There's so much more context to who Susan is, whereas when it aired, she was just the granddaughter of this old man.
Like, to me, I don't think to me personally, the new context surrounding the Doctor and the backstory doesn't really add any context to Susan. It just it does add context of, okay, she's now more enigmatic, because what the fuck's going on? But she was always meant to be enigmatic as well. So I don't think that really alters my view on Susan all that much. So me not liking her is literally based on the fact that I just don't like her. Tegan, on the other hand, although I don't like her personality, that's, I think, the point. We're not meant to like her personality.
Yeah, I think it's more like
we are shown moments of levity.
It's more like I'm not like keen on her as an individual, but it's more like I like what she contributes to the Fifth Doctor's like discourse with her. You know what I mean?
But also I get the sense that she's actually a good person.
Yeah. Well, I think
in I find annoying and
in Legopolis, before Aunt Vanessa dies, she's actually quite likable, and I think it's just that her life's been turned upside down, and that's why she's quite stroppy.
And she's quite stressed, and in the story, she earns those moments. Like, at the very beginning, it does feel a bit sudden that she's wanting to go back to Heathrow. Although, yes, it makes sense that she would want to go back to Heathrow, I feel like watching Castrovalva and then watching Fort of Doomsday, you don't get the sense that she's now, like, thinking, okay, or she's starting to think, okay, maybe I should go back to Heathrow. She just is now.
Yeah. I think Tegan's at her best from Snake Dance onwards. Snake Dance to Resurrection is my, like, Goldilocks period for her.
Because she's calmer, but she's still got that abrasive personality.
She's very good at Enlightenment, actually, from memory.
I need to rewatch it. I remember liking Enlightenment, but not all that much. But
I was a big fan.
Now I should probably rewatch it.
Loved it.
Oh yeah, Enlightenment sounds like it will be right up my alley, because this was right up my alley.
Oh yeah, Enlightenment's great. Yeah, anyway, so the other thing, the next thing I was going to say about Fort of Doomsday was the music was by Roger Lim, and I thought the music was really good as well. It did definitely blends in with the rest of the era and the season, but I thought it was well used, and I like... Sorry?
I will admit, the music wasn't really a big thing for me, because it wasn't really something that I picked up on a lot. It was very subtle. But when you pointed out the music, like, towards the start, I did agree that it did set up the atmosphere, because I do tend to think that 80s music is surprisingly atmospheric.
Yeah. So
for
to give
synthy
to give some
stuff.
comments, there were a few moments where there would be a little bit of calm with the music. There was one bit where there was a bit of humming, which I thought was really good. But what they would do is Roger Lynn would technically basically just add beats of music in when dramatic tension was needed. So it was almost like it complemented the scenes and it just added texture to them. And I thought the way it ramped up in the cricket ball scene in space was really good as well.
Yeah. I just the music, just 80s music is good.
Yeah, it is really good.
Apart from Kev McCulloch, who is okay.
Kev McCulloch.
He's produced my least favorite variant of the main music on TV.
Yeah, which
it's
is
like whenever he incorporates it into the soundtrack, it's really good, but like the actual theme music itself, no. Which is odd because it's my favorite Doctor's theme music, so
yeah, bit of
I
a
have
shame,
to
isn't it?
endure it.
Yeah, it's weird because like I have that a bit with it's like it's always the small details. You can never have your error be perfect. There's always something small detail that you don't like. And for me,
I mean, for me, it's just season 24.
Okay, but for me, with the Russell T Davies era, there's two things. The first thing is the major thing. It's the Next Time trailers. I hate the Next Time trailers with a burning passion. Hate them.
I do like the way they're edited and the way they're paced. And
Obviously well crafted. But what I'm saying is the fact that they have them and they spoil the next story, especially like the two-parters. Hate that. Fucking abysmal. And the other thing is that it's a little nitpick, but it's that like silver-plated logo that's used in Series 1 and 2's opening title sequence. It just looks bland.
Yeah, the Series 3 and 4 logo is way better.
Oh, I love the Series 3 and 4 one, yeah, but that first logo
I'm
they
glad we
used,
agree on that.
but the Series 1 and 2 one, it's nostalgic, but it's very bland.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's annoying. It's like, you can't have perfection. There's always going to be one terrible thing about everything you like. But, you know.
Yeah, I guess now we're speaking about New Who. Is that us finished with Forge Doomsday, or should we just have closing thoughts now?
I was just going to brush through some trivia, and then I was going to do my conclusion rating.
Okay.
So this was the first one that the Fifth Doctor filmed. We know this already. And I thought he did a really good job, considering.
Yeah.
Really
I was good.
I was correct about him being squeaky, but I actually think that kind of worked to help his sort of panicky mood.
Yeah.
Oh, the Nissa's sudden fainting spell. It's someone compared it to when the Doctor eats that thing in Celestial Toymaker and has to go into the gunfighters with a toothache.
Yeah, but this was more sudden.
Peter Davison didn't enjoy the serial because he was new and didn't feel he knew what he was doing. Interesting.
I think this is one of my favorite Fifth Doctor performances.
Yeah, I thought he did really well. Matthew Waterhouse felt Adric's reasoning for siding with the villain made no sense and resented his character being made to have bad motives and beliefs for no other reason than for other characters to tell him that they were bad.
I do admit that was he is right about that being the function, but I do feel like it made sense because Adric's a very logical character, and he saw this as a logical next step. Although I do think his understanding of Eirich as a character may be different.
Oh,
and you may argue it may be a superior one because he is the actor, but I do feel like it made sense.
This next one is quite it's a fix that was made that I actually think is a really good fix that was made. I'm glad that they did it. So originally, the Aboriginal character's dialogue when he talks to Tegan in part 1, it was originally scripted as plausible sounding gibberish. But then Janet Fielding, who is Australian, felt this was insulting and requested that the writer consult the BBC's language department and rewrite the dialogue as actual Aboriginal language. So the one that they settled on was Tiwi.
because that would be racist.
Yeah,
I'm glad because otherwise I probably wouldn't want the story as much.
Yeah, so they settled on the language Tiwi, and they wrote the script as actual Aboriginal language. I'm happy about that. Thank you, Janet Fielding. You have
I mean, good job they casted an Australian actor as an Australian character. Like, imagine if Perry was in this story and they were trying to do like Native American dialect. That fix probably wouldn't have happened if that were the case.
Yes, so Janet Fielding has made the story age much better than it would have had she not done that.
Janet Fielding is just a legend.
I know, she's great.
I love Janet Fielding.
I know.
Tegan I may not love, but I love Janet Fielding.
Oh yeah. I loved her season 19 trailer that she did. That was so funny.
I feel like this trailer is warming on me, but I feel like... I mean, I guess I'm comparing them to the other trailers too much, but I do think it's a good trailer.
Yeah, the one where she's doing she's an air hostess. And the Fifth Doctor and Nyssa are on the plane.
Or yeah, Peter Davison, Sarah Sutton.
Yeah, and
then he asks, "Oh, can I get back to Heathrow?" And it's just like, "That's my line."
Great.
Yeah, I love it because like I think this TARDIS.
Oh my god! Okay, this one's hilarious. This bit of trivia is hilarious. Matthew Waterhouse.
Can I just say what I'm about to say?
Yeah, go ahead.
I do think this TARDIS team is like, well, the actors that play it are the most critical of their era, but that's what makes it enjoyable. That's what makes them enjoyable, and that's what makes watching the behind the sofas enjoyable.
Oh, absolutely.
On the Blu-rays. But anyways, continue.
Here we go. Matthew Waterhouse's working relationship with Peter Davison got off to a rocky start when he pointed out the mistakes he was making and told him he would never be as good as Tom Baker. You little shit. Fuck me.
Okay, pointing out the mistakes, fair enough, professionalism. Saying you'll never be as good as Tom, fuck off. That is actually just fucking rude.
Yeah, imagine if like
Matthew Waterhouse.
Imagine if like on the Christmas Invasion set, Billy Piper's like, "Yeah, you'll never be as good as Christopher Eccleston." Fuck. Jesus, that is rough.
That's brutal.
I think that it contributes to like how Peter Davison basically chews the scenery when he tells him he's an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah, but like it worked because it was a good scene.
Oh, Matthew Waterhouse, what the hell, man?
You fucking cunt.
All right, give your conclusion and a rating out of 10 for 4 to Doomsday.
My conclusion. I mean, I kind of already did that, but I'll do it again because why not? 4 to Doomsday. It was surprisingly good. I'm glad James Goss, a writer I respect, likes this for good reason, and the reasons really are it utilizes the TARDIS team very well, or as well as you can when you've got Nyssa on the team. It's a very good start for the Fifth Doctor. It's a very good debut performance for Peter Davison, and the ideas that the story has are very interesting, very unique. And like the only real story you can compare it to is the Ark in Space, and even then, that's very much if you squint a lot. It's a really fresh take on an alien invasion. It's a fresh take on a villain. The drama that is caused as a result is really investing, and I guess the mysteries caused by the ideas in the first half are engaging. I do feel like the second half may be slower, but the drama as a result is captivating, and the action in part 4 was somehow, even though I was expecting to hate it, I loved it, and is possibly some of my favourite moments in Doctor Who. The only real issue I have with this story is the ending, because I do feel like the ending was very rushed and very much not properly set up in the case of Nyssa's part, or not properly paid off in the case of the Monarch's part. But other than that, I feel like the story is very visually striking. It definitely gives you can tell a director wrote it but also not only is it visually striking, it being visually striking is actually important to the experience of the story itself, not just the entire experience of watching it, but, you know, the more you, like, if you pay attention to what's going on visually, it's more satisfying when more developments happen. Oh, I knocked my laptop there. I did a little wobble. It was really great. I would prefer it to be better, but I do think the pretentiousness is nicely counteracted by the, I guess, I used this word before, but now I've forgotten it. The humbleness. Okay, that's not a proper word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, it being this era having a humble vibe does counteract the pretentiousness of the story really well, and it makes for a really nice, comfy, enjoyable, engaging experience. And as I said, even though there would be improvements I'd make to it, it's still a really good story and a really underrated one. Probably the most underrated Fifth Doctor story. Either that or Planet of Fire, in my opinion. So I'm going to have to give it an 8.5 out of 10. It's
Very well said.
Really great.
Very well
The
said.
best 80s story so far.
Interesting. Right, so I really like this story. It was genuinely surprising. I'm like you said, glad that James Goss likes this story because it does have a lot of quality to it.
Yeah.
The companions we used really well. The Fifth Doctor's first performance he did was like Peter Davison's first performance as the Fifth Doctor was surprisingly really good. Like you said, the cricket ball scene was actually really good. It was surprising how well it was done. And it had a very solid plot, very solid all round, great concepts. The villain was interesting and unique and a breath of fresh air. Direction was solid. The sets were really well crafted and very intricately designed. The music was well executed. A couple of rough moments, like the sexism bit, and obviously the last 60 seconds kind of blunts the ending of the story. But for the most part, for 90% of it, it was really, really solid, and I had a great time. And like you, I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10.
Nice, we finally agree on a Doctor Who story for once.
I know.
Other
I feel
than
like
an obvious classic like Genesis or Androzani.
I feel like
that's the name of your...
I feel like we've actually this is a good conclusion to our character arcs here.
Our character arcs in real life.
Yes. Right, that means there is only one more thing we need to do. And that is defend a New Who episode against Hellbent. And the one that we are going to be doing,
out for me?
The one I have picked up for you is Night Terrors.
I knew it. I fucking knew it.
Go ahead, sir.
40 Doomsday is better than Night Terrors, by the way. But Night Terrors... I made a video on Universals, or rather 2 videos because it was so long. It was a overview, more so a retrospective on Series 6, and seeing should people give it a second chance. I was giving it a second chance. Was it something that people hated too much? And I came to the conclusion, yes, and Night Terrors was my prime example. Because the thing is with Night Terrors is that it's actually pretty decent horror that also... It does have comedy elements that aren't blended well into the horror, I will grant you that. It does have its issues, it does have its flaws. But largely, I think Matt Smith delivers a great performance. Karen Gillan and Arthur Darvill also deliver good performances, even though Amy and Rory don't really do much. I do feel like they're very functional, because much like in The Doctor's Wife, they're exploring more of the horror concepts within it. I do feel like the horror concepts in general, although they're fairly basic, they are stemmed from something that, in my opinion, Doctor Who should really be at its core. And Doctor Who is a kid's show, so why not make it stem from a child having fear? I feel like Mark Gatiss had a really solid idea, and I feel like it was executed fairly well for what it was. Much like Forward to Doomsday, as I said earlier, the resolution was a bit quick for my liking. I feel like the episode needed 5 more minutes to really flesh out its ending, But other than that, I feel like it was a fairly solid outing, and definitely for me, one of the highlights of Series 6. I would give it an 8 out of 10. Meanwhile, Hellbent has no nuance whatsoever. It is just a very blatant, hey, we're on Gallifrey now. You happy? Anyway, here's Clara for another, 40 minutes. And it was basically giving a tongue bath to Clara as a character. And sure, it was wanting to explore consequences, but I don't think it did that adequately. And I feel like Hellbent is just this boring mess of just not so greatness, I guess. I don't know, I'm not using proper words, but then again, it's not really a proper script. So there you go. I think Hellbent was incredibly misguided conceptually, and in execution, I will admit, they did try to polish this turd as much as they can, but you can only polish a turd so much before it breaks, and just ends up not looking polished whatsoever. So yeah, I do think Rachel Talalay's direction is great. I do like the idea of the cloisters and how that is related to the Matrix. I think that really works. I wish the episode was actually about that, and as that is very interesting. But really, it just fundamentally misunderstands the characters and what makes the characters work, what made previous stuff to do with those characters work, and what makes... and it doesn't really... For a story about consequences, it feels like there really isn't many. Like, oh, the Doctor killed this person, now Clara is sad. Oh, the Doctor brought Clara back to life even though he shouldn't do that. The consequence is he forgot. Like, I know there was a hand-wavy explanation about how Clara is not really alive. She's just conscious and able to move about in a second before her death. And she can return at any point. But no, it doesn't work. It is retroactively made worse by Twice Upon a Time, but I don't think that's the fault with Hellbent, that's the fault with Twice Upon a Time. Because stuff that retroactively makes previous stories worse isn't the issue with that previous story, because otherwise Genesis of the Daleks would be kind of shit, because of Magician's Apprentice, which is familiar.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my thesis. I'd probably give Hellbent a 3, maybe a 2, but...
So what you're basically saying is you think Night Terrors is...
with a 3.
What you're saying is Night Terrors is far better.
It is far better. I think it's great. I know I'm in the minority, and I explained why. I explained why I think it's far better. I explained why I think it's even remotely great, and I explained why Hellbent very much isn't. So I feel like I've made my peace on that. I feel like I don't need to explain more. I don't feel like I need to compare them, because I don't think they're comparable, because one's actually really good, the other's really shit.
Mm-hmm.
What's your thoughts?
So obviously I don't like Night Terrors. I don't like it as a horror. I don't like the concept itself I can respect, but it's not something I'm interested in. I've never been the biggest fan of indulging in the children side of things. It just doesn't do it for me. It's something that the Moffat era does, especially with Matt Smith. It just have no interest in it.
I think that's kind of what they tried to do within The Farce of the Night, and that's something I understood, but I feel like they didn't do it well there.
Oh yeah.
So I don't really think that sort of stuff's for me, but I can appreciate it when it's done well, and that's why I like Night Terrors.
Yeah. So I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it anyway, but I like it more than Hellbent by quite a distance, and the reason why is because, well, firstly, there is one moment I do think is quite neat, and that's the bit where Amy transforms into a doll. That's quite scary. There's also another bit where a guy gets sucked into a floor, and I think I also remember there's that bit where the old lady is in the bin bags. So there's a couple of neat little horror bits. It's fairly well directed, and the color grading is pretty good. But in terms of the actual story, the reason why I like it more than Hellbent is because it's more of a case of a concept and a genre done in a way that I don't like and don't enjoy, and I really don't like the ending and like all the Sacron, really sugary kid stuff. But it doesn't go so far to damage a lot. The only thing I feel like it damages in terms of Series 6 is, and this is not at the fault of the script, it's actually at the fault of the production and how they change the order of the stories, is that Amy and Rory forget about their baby being missing. That's the only thing I really don't like about it. Although that's probably more at fault of Let's Kill Hitler than this one. But it is an issue. But apart from that,
I didn't really think of that.
But apart from that, it's not as damaging to the season it's in. It's more just a standalone story I'm not that big on. It is quite isolated. It's one that you don't really need to see to understand the full context of the season. It's very standalone.
Yes.
And it doesn't do damage outside of itself. So that is something that I like more about it, because Hellbent does damage to many, many, many other things, past and future. And it also damages itself. So yeah, that's the biggest difference to me is how the damage spreads, and also the amount of it as well.
So basically, what you're saying is Night Terrors is fundamentally something that you're not a fan of, but Hellbent is something that's fundamentally terrible and infects things that otherwise.
And also, I think
terrible.
with Mark Gatiss, there's a lot more honesty in his scripts than there is with Moffat. Like, there's a lot more sort of quaint and a bit like, actually a little bit like for Doomsday. There's a sort of, I wouldn't necessarily say humbleness, because Mark Gatiss does have a sort of confidence to him, but there is an honesty to his scripts, I think, and a sort of, it comes from a place of, there is a cute place there with Mark Gatiss' scripts usually, whereas with Hellbent, it's very, very up its own arse. And that's a big detractor for me, especially because it's like, if you're going to be up your own arse, you better get it right, otherwise I'm going to hate it.
Yes. With here, I think For to Doomsday was kind of up its own arse conceptually, but because it's in a humble era, that cancels that out and just gives you ideas. The Moffat era is an up its own arse kind of era.
But by comparison, Night
Terrors is kind of like an inverse of For to Doomsday in a way, because Night Terrors is very honest, and in a way, as you said, it's not quite humble, but it's still honest. It's not up its own arse, but it's in an up its own arse era. But it's still, but it feels nice. It feels nice, regardless.
Yeah, I'll be interested to rewatch it when I do, because it's been a few years since I've watched Night Terrors, but I don't remember liking it. On every viewing I've done. I think I've seen it 3 times now. I think it's been 3 times, including the first broadcast.
My goal with my videos on Series 6 was to at least make people see the season in a new light, maybe appreciate it more. And Night Terrors, for me, I was able to appreciate it a lot more than I previously did, because previously I just kind of forgot about it, but now I'm like, no, it might even be in my top 10 of Smith.
Wow.
But,
I mean, to be fair, for me, like, there are a couple of stories at the bottom of Matt Smith's top 10 that I'm not the biggest fan of, so I suppose I can see that.
But Night Terrors, I feel like there's a lot more moments than the ones you mentioned that I think really work. Like, I do think the Doctor sonicking the cupboard and realizing something's wrong with it really adds to the horror, because I guess the Doctor, in a sense, is our beacon of hope and our beacon of bravery, in a sense, or especially in the Moffat era. That's for certain in the Moffat era.
Certainly with Matt Smith, yeah.
And I guess this is something that happened in Series 1. Yes, I'm comparing Night Terrors to Russell, or I guess in this case Shearman, because in Dalek, the Doctor was initially scared of the Dalek. And that in turn makes us scared of the Dalek, because the Doctor's meant to be the brave one. And if the brave one is scared, that tells us that we need to be scared. Same sort of logic applies to Night Terrors, although it's a very different kind of scene. It's got a very different kind of atmosphere. It's got a very different context. But the same core idea of the Doctor being scared of this thing, this, well, in this case, a more mysterious object, having this innate sense of something's evil, something evil is in there, makes us think, oh shit, something's up. And I know Will Maddox definitely makes fun of me for this, but this is something that Ryan pointed out. And I agreed, and I thought, yeah, it's a very clever observation, and it's a small detail that really makes me appreciate the story a lot more, and there was other details like it. Yes, the child acting is not that good, but then again, it didn't really bother me. I think it really depends on how much you tolerate child acting. That does impact your enjoyment of the story, I do admit. But
he's not as good as Caitlin Blackwood, I'll say that.
Yeah. But yeah. Also, something I realized about Series 6 earlier, when I was in a call with someone else, was that it has themes of family. Usually it's paternal, but sometimes there's focus on Amy and Rory. And in the case of the Doctor's wife, there are characters named after family members, like auntie, uncle, nephew. That's a very loose connection, I do admit. But most of it is to do with I guess a paternal kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of daddy issues and not issues, but like that sort of father-child relationship thing in Series 6, because you have it in Curse of the Black Spot, you have it in the Flesh Two-Parter, you have it in Night Terrors, and you have it in Closing Time, and then obviously with like Rory and his child as well.
Yeah, but with that's more so Amy and Rory and River all connected with one another. Everything else, any other observation I can make other than what's directly linked with the ponds and the sort of father-son dynamics throughout the season, that anything else I would connect to those themes is quite loose, but those themes are prevalent throughout Series 6, and not Closing Time, Night Terrors. You can tell I'm a bit tired, because it is like 2:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
But Night Terrors, I nearly said Closing Time, yeah. Night Terrors, definitely, even though it is a standalone story and does not fit into the wider scope of the season, it does tie into that theme of family and paternal relationship. And also, if you think about it, Doctor Wood in the Wardrobe also ties in with this theme. Not saying that makes it good by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, its theme kind of is one of the reasons why it's a bad story, with its whole maternal themes, written by a kind of misogynistic man. But anyway, yeah. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about Night Terrors, comparing it to Hellbent. Yeah, Night Terrors, very nice story. This is just me defending Night Terrors. Like, I can't defend Hellbent. I will say what's in Hellbent's favor sometimes when it's applicable. Like,
there's
for instance,
only
there's good acting.
I dislike Hellbent a lot more than you. I think it's probably my least favorite episode of all time. But there is one line from it that I did like before Chris Chibnall kind of played around with it in the Timeless Children. But
and
it's the line. It's the line where Rassilon says, he says, "How many regenerations did we give you?" I really like that because it means that it's vague how long the Doctor has left.
I think that's more so patchwork for Time of the Doctor, and I don't think the best aspect of a story should be patchwork. So I do agree.
Look, it's Hellbent. I'm grasping at straws, man.
I might give Hellbent a worse score than a 3 upon rewatch, because that's what I gave it last time. Because it's bad, it's pretty bad.
But that was the only line that I really liked in the script, was that one.
I do think the script is fundamentally broken.
Oh yeah,
like on a lot of conceivable levels. But there's nothing that it's not the case of like something like Kill the Moon where I actively despise every decision that was made. Because heck, I like the Cloisters, but like. Hellbent's baffling, boring, and sometimes dreadful to the point of hatred. But it's not a constant barrage of, I despise this element, I despise that element, like Kill the Moon. And that's why I think Kill the Moon is the worst.
That's fair. Kill the Moon's pretty close to Hellbent for me. It's like Hellbent, Necromantia, and Kill the Moon are like my bottom 3.
Hellbent might be in my bottom 5 Capaldis. I'll give you that. Definitely in the bottom 10. But I don't know about the bottom 5. I feel like when I do, like, because in my Twitter thread I do top 10, bottom 5 for Capaldi, just because I really don't like Series 8 and 9, I feel like I kind of have to give a bottom 10 for Capaldi era.
What, so you can put Lie the Land
that's
on
more
it?
Episode. I probably will, but that'll be the
Yeah.
only Series 10 story that's on there.
I probably agree with that, to be honest.
Yeah.
Although I would consider, I mean, if we're counting the specials, I would consider putting either Return of Doctor Mysterio and Twice Upon a Time on it, because I don't like those. But if we're talking about just the meat of Series 10...
Twice Upon a Time could appear.
If we're talking about just the meat of Series 10, Lie the Land is the one.
I actually quite like Return of Doctor Mysterio, because that's a bit of a fun, campy romp, but it's nothing amazing. It's like 7 out of 10 at best. But that's just me. I don't know, my tastes are inconsistent, but at least I give reasons as to why I like it in that specific context, or why I don't like it in that specific context.
Well, justification's always nice. It helps other people understand
I'm
why
not
you like something.
Yeah. If you feel like I'm not liking this one thing and I'm liking this other thing, and they're both similar in terms of qualities, I feel like a lot of the time my justification might be I just don't vibe with what this season's going for, or I do vibe with what this season's going for, and that vibe happens to affect how I like the story. Like, for example, Meglos, I think, would be sublime if it was in... Or sublime in comparison if it was in Season 17. Because the vibe would impact that story, because Douglas Adams, yeah. Meanwhile, Christopher H. Bidmead flat out admitted to neutering the script of Meglos.
Meglos feels like it feels like halfway between Season 17 and 18. It's kind of like a bridge.
The concept is it's like a Season 17 script executed in a Season 18 way.
Yeah, and I think there's
but not the good kind of Season 18
there's
way.
There's one or two stories in Season 15 that are like halfway between Hinchcliffe and Williams as well. So there's sort of these transitional periods sometimes you get.
Yeah. But you know, I don't think Meglos quite worked in Season 18. If it was in Season 17, it would work, but because it's Season 18, it doesn't. So the overall vibe actually impacts the stories a lot more. And I feel like having a more intriguing and pretentious script in a very humble era works. So that's why something like... I think that's why Moffat worked in the RTD era, because the RTD era was humble in its own way.
I think it is quite bombastic, but it's humble at the grounded level.
Yeah, and that really complements Stephen Moffat's writing style, where he's very bombastic, very pretentious, but RTD managed to ground the situation, with Empty Child. You're seeing how it affects the average person. With Blink, Sally, and what's his face? Can't fucking remember. They feel like real people.
I would have been interested to see the other way around. Like, what would it have been like if Russell was a guest writer in Moffat's era?
New Search, probably.
Possibly, yeah.
But yeah, Girl in the Fireplace. The stuff with the Doctor and Renette, captivating because they feel like grounded and real people falling in love. And Science in the Library stuff, Donna. Full stop. But, so certain writing styles are complemented by the overall vibe. And I guess that's what works for Forge of Doomsday, that's what works for Night Terrors for me. And with Hellbent, you can't exactly say that because it's the same person writing.
And
as it
Hellbent's
is
kind of a case
providing
of
the
doubling
vibe.
down. It's like Moffat plus Moffat equals extra Moffat, you know?
Yeah. Sometimes it can work, like Heaven Sent. But then Hellbent happens.
Yeah. Moffat's a bit of a wild card.
Yeah.
Right.
But,
that
yeah,
was
that's it.
that was a very interesting conversation.
I feel like we actually had an intelligent discussion. This is better than how we usually are on Discord calls, where it's usually just like, I just try and annoy you by saying, "Oh, the keeper of tracking's not good."
Listen, Matt.
And you're like,
Matt, don't you
yeah.
think you can see the reason why these videos are one-on-one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because group atmosphere is not good. Unless if it's Dimensions in Time where everyone's
Yeah.
getting shit-faced.
That's the only
But,
one I'm
you
going to
know.
have group on is Dimensions in Time, and that's going to be hilarious.
Because it's going to be fun. How about we watch it 3 times back to back?
No.
And just get progressively more drunk. Obviously with breaks in between, but still.
I'm not hosting that. I don't drink anyway.
Aww. It'll be fun.
You can drink if
Never
you
mind.
want. You can drink if you want.
Oh yeah,
but
I'm gonna be drinking. I don't think I'll be fully drunk, but like...
I'm going to have to
I'll be
watch it
drinking.
sober.
I've watched it multiple times in my life. I've probably already watched it in my marathon at that point. Actually, will I have?
Who knows?
Doesn't matter. If I haven't watched it at that point.
Well,
in my
because you're
marathon,
going to
I'll
have
just
to
watch it
wait.
again.
You're going to have to wait for me for Silver Nemesis, unless, of course, I get there first. But one of us is going to have to wait for the other one for Silver Nemesis. And then we may
Yes.
finish Survival around the same time.
I think I might watch a season per week. And so that season 24 can release, but then once I finish season 24... Oh, pardon me. I'll wait for you until I can get a date for Silver Nemesis, and then I'll watch season 25. Yeah.
Or you're gonna have to hold off on watching your favorite seasons until I get there.
Worth it.
The tension.
Yeah.
Right.
My 2 favorite seasons of all time.
Right. Well, thank you
Yeah.
for coming on this video. It was one that you've been
And-
requesting to be on for a while. Being on a video on the Western Classical series, but we finally got here.
Yeah. Yeah, we did. And I had a really good experience. Better than I was expecting. Just to be honest, this whole... because Forward to Doomsday was better than what I expected. And being on here was better than anything I could have dreamed of. So thanks for having me.
It's a magic formula that seems to have worked with every guest I've had on.
Yeah. Because we're not arguing. I have a feeling you'll vibe with what Silver Nemesis is going for on a, look, we're trying this idea kind of thing. But I feel like you might not like it fundamentally, but who knows, you might.
Who the hell knows? Who can predict what I'm going to think of that?
Yeah.
Right. Well, that was For the Doomsday. Another story that's just there's so many different stories that I'm getting these guests on, and we're liking them more than expected.
And you can't say that I'm using bias like, I don't know, fucking Antonio or Will. Because I came into this fresh as well. So we just liked it naturally.
Yeah, it was actually a good story, and James Goss is correct. As always.
As he is with most things.
Yep. One of my favorite things he said on the Adam Martin interview he did on his channel was he said he got to the end of the interview and he's like, I'm so old now and I'm so happy I managed to get through this without having to go for a wee.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we're fairly young and we've had to go.
I've had to go for
multiple times.
Multiple, yeah. Right, so
Yeah.
that was For the Doomsday. Next time, I'm going to be doing Time Flight with Mason.
Okay.
I've heard many infamous things about Time Flight. I am looking forward to seeing it. But yeah, it should be interesting.
All of the infamous things about Time Flight are true. Will that affect your enjoyment?
Who knows?
I don't care. I don't care at this point.
Good, because that's how it should be. We should just all
Yeah.
appreciate the this spectrum of, you know, perspectives that we all have, and just discuss them and learn more about each other and what we think, and we may even like things more.
Yeah. Because I know for a fact that
if I were to make a prediction, I would say, based on what I've heard about it, it'll probably be my least favorite of season 19. But will I dislike it as a whole? That's what I want to find out.
Yes, because fundamentally it is the weakest of season 19.
Also, some people say that Fort of Doomsday is the weakest. It's not.
It's one of the strongest. I don't know what people are on about. Like, I think the only one I might prefer to this is Kinder, and maybe Earthshock if I change my mind on it. Because I think Earthshock's good, but overrated.
I really like Earthshock. I'm a big fan of it.
I think I'm not really a fan of Eirich Sayward.
I am. Although Earthshock's not my favorite Sayward story. That is a Revelation of the Daleks. I love Revelation.
I do think Eirich Sayward is... I mean, yeah, the quality of his scripts is always good. I just don't like his writing style. It's one of the... It's like one of those things that I just... It's not for me. Doesn't mean I can't think it's good. Doesn't mean I can't have a good time with it. Because I would easily say that something like, I don't fucking know, what's a story that I wouldn't say is for me?
The Ice Warriors.
Well, fundamentally mishandled stories aren't for me, I do agree. But like something like
Terror of the Autons?
I guess the Gunfighters. I had fun with it, but it's not really for me. But Eirich Sayward delivers better stuff than the fucking Gunfighters. So yeah. I'm looking forward to the
do you want me to make you feel terrible with just telling you where Fort of Doomsday ranks on the 2014 poll?
Where?
Out of 241 stories, it is 218.
Fuck off.
It's ranked below Nightmare and Silver.
Fuck off.
And Genesis Enter the TARDIS.
Then again, that poll's... everyone who took that poll was an idiot because Asylum of the Daleks is in the top 50.
I know, it's crazy.
Anyone who lets that happen is an idiot. Because it's literally probably my second least favourite story of all time.
It's awful.
It is just... I'm trying to think of good things about it. Now, there probably is one, but I can't think about it because I'm very tired.
Well, we'll leave that on a cliffhanger, and maybe someday we will find out what the good thing is about Asylum of the Daleks.
Maybe
anyway.
We can talk... Yeah, I'd love to do another sort of video. Maybe, of course, I'm doing another one like this.
Maybe during the
discussion video.
Maybe during the Silver Nemesis one, we can do a versus, and I defend Asylum of the Daleks, and you defend Hellbent.
I think my defense of Hellbent will probably be... This bit's not that bad, and also Cloister's cool. And that's it. Because it's like... Hellbent doesn't have much good, but it doesn't have much... Hellbent has a lot of neutral elements to it.
I disagree.
But
anyway...
it's also just not entertaining. Yeah.
It sounds interesting, but I'm going to end the video here. So, thank you for coming on.
I need sleep.
Goodbye. See you next time
Goodbye,
for Time
everyone.
Flight.